So hello, everybody. I am here today. This is Diane Broussard. I'm with you guys in the Diamond Center here in Diamond Springs. And this is like a very, very rare occasion for me. I've been able to actually bring here live my mother, Simone DuPont Hale. And the two of us have quite a story that we'd like to talk about because we feel this may be really important for humanity, and for many of you that might not be able to discuss certain things with your parents like I am with mine. And it is indeed a blessing. So for a quick moment here, I'd like to introduce you to my mother, Simone Josephine DuPont Hale. Waite Hale, actually. Ma, could you say hello to everybody?
Hi. My screen is screwed up again. This meeting is being recorded by the host or participant.
Just click it. Just click out of it. We're fine.
Leave meeting?
Yeah. No. Don't do anything. We're fine.
Okay.
You look good. Okay.
Here, it's gone.
This is our first time, guys, so let's bear with us. My mother is 94 years old. She lives with me in a town called Somerset in Northern California. And this is really going to be something about our lives together, which we have not had much of. So I can say that for my mother, she's 94 years old. She had me when she was 20 years old. She has a little bit of a story that I'm going to ask her to tell as to how I arrived. My mother was born in Belgium and was a war bride. She went through the war and met my father over there. And from there, I'm going to ask you, Ma, if you would kind of discuss a little bit about how you met my dad and how you guys came about to bringing me into this world.
I met your dad through my brother. My brother was a big fan of the American soldiers. And one day came home and he asked my mom, can I bring my friend home? He's an American soldier. And my mother said yes. And so my brother Jack brought home his best friend. And his name was Dick Waite, Richard James Waite. I met him and I thought, he's good looking, but that's about it. I mean, I didn't think too much about it. But little by little, he would come home to my house every day. And one of the things we did together with my brother was go and get the milk at the farm. So every night we would go and we would walk down and get the milk at the farm. Remember, I did not know any English at all, neither did my brother. So a lot of the words were done by hand movements or by signs, actually. My mother and father both spoke English, but they spoke English when we weren't supposed to know what they were saying. Anyway, in November of 1944, Dick had to go back to the States and he took one of the Liberty ships. He went back on a Liberty ship to the States. And we started corresponding. And I used to have a little dictionary. I still have it, English and French. Unfortunately, what I wrote was in French and I translated it word by word in English. I found one of my letters back years later when I was in Temple City and I just cracked up. I said, how did he ever understand what I was going to say? I mean, that was the silliest letter. I should have saved it because you wouldn't have believed it. But anyway, after about 18 months of being separated, I came to the States. My father got me a ticket and allowed me to come to the States. I was about a month short of being 19 years old. I didn't speak the language. And I arrived in Los Angeles on February the 5th, 1948. From there on, it was really funny because, as I said, we did everything mostly by signs since I didn't speak any English. But I did speak French, Dutch, and German. So it was not long before I started speaking English. Maybe not correctly, but at least I was able to make myself understood. Now, um, you want to know how you came into this picture. Well, Dick was building a house on the back of this parents' property. And when I got here, the house wasn't quite finished yet. We got married on April 19, 1947, and moved into that house. It was a dream come true for me. I mean, sunny weather, beautiful sunny weather. I came from about a freezing temperature, the coldest winter we ever had in Belgium. And here I am in sunny California. We got along fine, and I became pregnant in November of 47. And you were born July 5th, 1948. That's how you came into this world. I remember when we first brought you home, standing over that crib looking at you. That was the most wonderful feeling. I have never had a feeling like that again in my whole life. I adored you. Your dad adored you. You were the most welcome baby in the world, I think. And
So, Ma,
yeah,
right now, what I'd like to say is that that's beautiful because that lets me know my roots, that I was truly loved and wanted
oh God,
in this
yes.
world. However, I had a very rough, rocky road in my life, and people would say, well, why did you? I'd like to go back a little bit further to your upbringing. You came from a beautiful family that was very, very close, but you went through a really, really difficult war. You saw a lot of things that young children at your age probably never would hope to see. And I hope, honestly, they never do see, but there's many children these days that do see this. And I would like to just add that a little bit to how it was for you to come here to the United States, a country that was actually living in freedom, and you came from a country that was actually coming through a desperate war. And the things that happened in my life that I see now that you and I talk about are, very beautiful and natural for you, but for me, they were not. And I think that the reason that I'd like to have this discussion with you, and we've had many, and I thank you for that, is that it's very, very easy to see, oh, I had this problem because of this, I had this problem because of this, and that's easy. But for the children that don't understand why there is problems in their life or difficulties in their life when they come from parents that were, beautiful parents, this is what this conversation is all about. Because you, coming from where you came from, did the best you could.
Not speaking the language.
Not speaking the language, and coming from a foreign language where everything, as far as you were concerned, was based around a family. You never had any independence on your own. You went from one father to a husband, and all you knew was what you knew. And a lot of the difficulties that we have now, and I'm so grateful to have you here, honestly, because we can talk about them, are things that are probably legacies that we go through from one generation to a next, to a next, to a next. And I'm lucky to have you here at age 94 to see where we've come, where our children have come, and how maybe we can make it a little bit easier for them because they can see through your eyes how things have changed.
Oh, God, yes.
So I guess the next thing that I'd like to say to you is, how was your relationship with me growing up as your daughter?
Well, Diane, I think that it's very hard for me to explain because remember, I did not speak the language. Uh, I had no friends here. I had nobody that I could talk to. I was really alone because my husband worked, your dad worked all day. And by the time he came home at night, he was tired. We couldn't discuss much of anything. And unfortunately, you grew up in that atmosphere. Um, we both loved you tremendously, but we could not communicate. We could not tell each other how we felt and why we felt the way we did. You were born with your leg turned inwards, and we did go to a specialist doctor that said that we could work on it because his daughter was born with the same defect. You were too crowded inside me. So we worked on that together, your dad and I both. We would exchange, he would do it one day, I would do it the next. Um, the thing was, I couldn't really talk to you as a baby, as a little girl. Um, I used to carry you, and I can remember you showing the light, and I had I couldn't communicate with you. I had to speak in English, and that's the one language I didn't speak. I spoke three other languages, but English was forbidden during the war. So as much as we loved you, it was a strange relationship. I never really had a real relationship with you. I used to say, well, my daughter is just like her dad. She doesn't understand me. Well, of course you didn't. I spoke a foreign language, and I think that a lot of our problems probably stem from that, stem from my insecurity, my loneliness. I had an emotional breakdown when you were 3 years old. Uh, that made it even worse. I tried to kill myself. Um, that was not a good thing for a little 3-year-old. My father passed away when you were a 3-year old, and I remember you coming into the kitchen. Your dad came in and told me about my dad, and you looked at me with those beautiful blue eyes, and you said, "That's all right, Mommy. Grandpa is in heaven now." I mean, a little 3-year old. It When I think about it, you had a rough time, Di. I was not the mother that you should have had because I didn't know how. I didn't know. I was 20 years old. I didn't have my mother there. I had nobody to tell me what to do or what not to do. So I just did it by instinct. That's about it. That's the way you were raised.
So, Ma, here's something that I'd like to say to you. If you had not raised me the way that you did, and if my father did not raise me the way that he did, I would not be this beautiful person that I am today. And yes, I went through, and I've still been going through many, 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 many changes to learn about who I truly am and to be here to help others to figure out who they truly are. And because you have had the honesty and the patience, my mother and I actually really never did have a relationship together because her upbringing and her beingness was very, very controlling. It wasn't on purpose. It was what she knew. It's how she was raised in Belgium. It's how her parents raised her and their parents raised her. And I was left basically alone. I would say I was left basically alone. I had no one I could communicate with. I adored my father. I thought he was the most wonderful person in life, but he couldn't communicate either. So consequently, I was left to my own. And trust me, that took me all around every single pathway in life that may not have been the best for me. But one thing I did know is that my parents loved me. I carried a very, very deep root in my heart that my parents loved me. I didn't really understand them or where that came from. And even today, it's difficult because we go through a lot of things. But gratefully, or maybe ungratefully, my mother broke her hip about 5 or 6 years ago. And she lived down in Southern California, and I lived in Northern California. And I had always said, I will not be able to live with you, Mother, because I could not understand her rules and regulations and, who she was, because I was always kind of like a free spirit that never adhered to much of anything. But anyway, she did ask me if she could come and live with me. And I would have not said yes under any circumstances, except I had reached a point in my life where I felt, I can be with my mother and all of who she is going to be okay. And it's not going to affect me in any way because now I know who I am. Before that time, I had a very difficult time, and I still do, wondering if I'm good enough. I went through so many emotional situations where I felt I was not good enough. I was not good enough to wash the dishes. I was not good enough to even fix my hair, to do anything in the house, simply because this is how my mother was raised. And at the time, and it still could be right now, had I not questioned it, it would go on where we are raised by parents who are raised by parents in the very, very best of meanings, but it affects us in many ways. It affects our freedom. It affects us now because we are asked to step up and to change and to be more than what we've ever been and more than what our parents have ever been. And I've had deep discussions with my mother on this, and they've been probably sometimes difficult. But I am so grateful that my mother is so honest that she can actually see some of the things that I have gone through and that we're going through still today that has helped me understand who I am. Because all of us have these little children inside of us who are maybe angry, sad, or don't feel good enough. So because I've been able to go through these patterns with my mother, it's helped me realize I am good enough and that everything my mother did for me was never intentional. This is who she was, and this is the best that she could do. So we are here today to talk about some of those things where things were said to me, and I'm saying this because I am really here trying to help other mothers and their children understand the importance of tiny little things. And my mother has been able to listen to me with a lot of these things. And one of these things I'll bring up, and there may be more along the way, but the first one that I really, really remember, and she does too, and she's been wonderfully honest enough to see where this came from, was the fact that at some point, as a young child, I wanted to help my mother do the dishes for a group of people that had come to the house. I wanted to help. I was so wanting to help all the time. My mother, my family, my brother, always wanting to be helpful. And I was told, no, you can't help. And basically that came from the fact that you don't do it good enough. You don't wash the dishes the way I want you to wash them, and you don't do it good enough. You don't do things here. And it's not that she said that to me for her lips, but what came to me was that I wanted to help, and I was told I could not help. And so I took it on as that I'm not good enough to do this. And it crushed me. And it still stays with me today. Although I understand, knowing my mother, and we still go through this, trust me, My mother is one that learned from her mother that the kitchen is hers. What she cooks, what she does in the kitchen is hers. And it's very difficult for her, for either myself, my children, or my grandchildren to be in the kitchen with her. And she is the first one to say, yes, it is. And it's very, and here's the thing, there's not much, this is how she was raised. She was raised this way. It's inside of her. So I understand that now. And that's a very, very small thing of how mothers and daughters and grandchildren learn to accept and love those parents. My mother is almost 100 years older than what's happening right now in life. And we've changed a lot. And I'm so grateful because I have my mother here, and regardless, she can tell me, yeah, that's true. I still feel that way. And many things we talk about, she still feels that way, and it's who she is. And I've had to learn to honor who she is and to also say, but I am good enough, and honor myself. And my mother also is good enough for who she is and everything she did for me. And I know that she went through the same thing with her own mother. And I don't know if you can touch bases, Ma, but we did talk about the generational thing about back in your day, you would not even consider anything that your parents did that was not correct. You honored your parents, you honored your adults, you honored all of that back in your day, and you were never able to question, well, maybe I would like to do something different. And we've talked about this, and I'm just wondering if you have anything that you might shed a light on for others today to see as we're trying to unfold, those generations.
In my days, as I said, when I married your dad, I was 20 years old, and I had never done any cooking whatsoever. Here I come into the States. I didn't even know how to boil water, to speak of. I mean, there were two things I could make. I could make homemade mayonnaise and I could make cream sauce. That were my duties at home on Sundays. My dad would make the steak or the roast or whatever it was that we were having. And my duty was either the mayonnaise or the cream sauce. That's the only thing I could make. And the very first meal we had when we were up in Lake Arrowhead on our honeymoon was Dick was fixing steak and I was fixing cauliflower with cream sauce. That's the only thing I could do. So I had to really learn from scratch. I had to learn in a foreign country with a foreign language, with no family around me whatsoever, all on my own. I did the best I could. But as I look back, I can see all the mistakes I made. I can see how I used to tell you, oh no, don't do that. I'll do it. I'll do it. At the time, I didn't realize because I do it better than you. But that's what actually it was. And my my parents never made me do anything. So I never knew whether I was good enough or not. And I can say one thing. You are now such a wonderful person. I never knew you. I really never knew you. Um, you left the house when you were still very young. And I never had a real connection with you. We lost your brother when he was 26 years old. So I, there again, was on my own. And it's, when I think about talking with you now, I think I have changed quite a bit over the years. I feel like you have taught me so much since I've been here that I appreciate it, because I think that today I'm a better person than I was 10 years ago, thanks to you. You have enlightened me in your way of living. I have met some of your friends that live like you and think like you. And although I haven't reached that point and I can't quite understand it, I still have picked up so many little things that you've told me. Maybe not at the moment that you say it, but later on I'll say, yeah. The, the most important thing that you taught me was the inner child. That to me has made a real profound difference in my life. And I appreciate it and I thank you for it.
How has that changed your life in any way, Ma? How did that happen for you as we talked about the inner child and the
Well,
importance?
it made me understand why I did a lot of things that I did. It made me understand that when I was little, I was never good enough. I mean, if I came home with a report card and I had 4 A's and 1 B, my dad would say, well, if you had 4 A's, why couldn't you get the other one as an A too? So it was never good enough. They taught me to play the piano. Well, I have very short fingers and I was never good at playing the piano, but I loved it. I loved piano music. So I never felt good enough. And I will say one thing, which I don't think I've ever said to anybody, but the day that I was in the church getting married, I still doubted to the last minute that my husband would walk away and just leave me there because I wasn't good enough. All my life, I felt I never was good enough. I never met up to the standard that my parents set for me. And I think that has affected my life, but it also has affected yours. Because if I wasn't good enough, I couldn't raise a child that was good enough. So I'm sorry about that, Diane, but I've not been the perfect mother.
Mother,
Believe
here's
me.
the thing. You have been the perfect mother because I chose you. And the thing that we've both learned right now is every time we come together and we talk about, why didn't you cook Mexican food when I was young? You know, and I grill you on every little thing. And it's like, were you prejudiced? Did you teach me this? And we finally came to the realization that nobody did at that time. It was the way of the times.
And your
But
father didn't need it either. So,
it was not even available. I mean, that's a small thing. The big things are much more about being good enough. You know, I struggled with that my whole entire life, as you know. And I still do. And I think
I
99%
still
of
do too.
humanity struggles with that. But if we can come to that place of honesty within ourselves, to our children, my children too, it's like, you are good enough, you know, it would be a better world. And so I'm having this with you because I'm blessed to have a mother who's open-minded enough and who is good enough to be able to see that she raised me. And I have come to a point in my life right now where I feel I am good enough. You know, I am good enough. I've done so many things in my life. I am here and we are here right now, Ma, just to let you know. We're helping humanity and all the other mothers and daughters that don't feel they're good enough and that have gone through things that were just not on purpose. It was the way you were raised. It was the
Well,
times.
it was the way I was raised and also the circumstances of my life coming over to the States, not speaking the language, totally different customs, the assimilation of it, I couldn't understand why people would do things like they did because I never did it that way. So it was confusion. And that was not a good way to raise children. If I was confused myself and didn't understand it, how was I going to teach you to understand it? So a lot of the things were not necessarily my fault or your dad's fault or whatever fault. It was just circumstances that were not in our favor. If I would have met your dad 20 years later in my life, it would have been a totally different story. Because by that time, I could, I knew who I was and I could understand it better. And I probably would have been a heck of a lot better mother then. And I know I would be now than I was then. I can see that with my little great grandson, with little Jordan. I'm totally different with him than I was with you. The love was there. The love is there with him too. But I understand him. I don't get shook up if he doesn't want to come near me or pushes me away. He just doesn't feel like it that day. I would never have understood that from you. I would have said, oh, well, she doesn't like me. And I've said that. So you see, it's also the life that we live and the understanding. When you're 20 years old, you don't know what you do at 94. Believe me.
Well, let me tell you something. If you're 30 or 40 years old, you don't either. So we're all growing and we're all learning. And I have another question for you. What was it like for you? Because basically we had not a relationship. I would come and see you once a year and that was it. And then all of a sudden you asked to come and live with me up in Northern California. Could you tell me how that changed your life?
Yeah, I remember that you and my granddaughter Heather both told me, we are not going to take care of you, Granny, when you're old, but we'll make sure that you're taken care of. In other words, you weren't willing to take care of me, but you would see to it that I was taken care of. Well, when I broke my hip 7 years ago, for 2 years, I was able to still handle myself pretty well until that hip really got worse. My leg got worse and I couldn't drive anymore. And then I lost my eyesight. My right eye is totally blind. My left eye is, I can still see some, but I mean, not much anymore. And I knew I couldn't keep on living like that. And I don't know what. We were on the phone one day and why, I don't know. But I said, would you mind if I come and live with you? And you said, no, but you should ask Josh because it's his house. And I called Josh up that same day and I asked him, I said, Josh, would it be all right if I come and live up in Mount Shasta, in Mount Arkham with your mother? Would you mind? And he said, I would be honored, Granny. And here I am. And I have changed so much in the last 5 or 6 years that I've been here. I feel like I'm a different person. I am much older. I'm not quite as tolerant anymore as I used to be, but I'm so much more understanding. I mean, I've always been a dominant mother. I know that. Diane, don't go outside, it's cold. Put your sweater on. Diane, do this. Diane, do that. Now, I just will ask, what's on the menu today, Di? What are you planning on doing today? But it's not the same thing anymore. It's just kind of information, kind of talk. Um, I trust you implicitly. I trust your judgments. I trust your choices. And as I said before, now I can leave this earth and not worry. Before, I always said, what in the world is going to happen to her? Because I remembered you the way you were when I was, when we were still strangers. Now I don't have to do that anymore because I know you and I know you're going to be okay. And I know you're going to be fine. So now I can go in peace. That's another thing that I have now learned.
So
So
when
thank you,
you say,
Diane.
Ma,
Huh?
that, go ahead. I was like,
Thank
when
you,
you
Diane.
say that you didn't trust me or you didn't trust what I was doing and now you do, could you tell me why was that? Why did you not trust what I was doing? Or, and what has changed between how you saw me before these 6 years you came to live with me and how you see me now? What has changed?
Um, I feel that now you're you have taken your life in your own hands and you're able to manage it much better than you did before. Remember, we had some episodes when you were a teenager that was hard for me to forget. And I was always afraid that you would not be able to make the right decisions. I have come to the conclusion that I don't have to worry about that. You are making the right decision for you and for the family. You are now your own self. You have learned to love yourself, to accept yourself as you are, and to accept other people as they are. And I'm so proud of you. I am so proud of the woman that you've become. I think you did a marvelous job with your children and your grandchildren. You're a wonderful mother and a great grandmother. And I keep on thinking, well, I guess I didn't do such a bad job after all. Look at how she turned out in the long run. I'll take the credit for that a little bit anyway.
So my question to you is, we've talked a lot about the beliefs and the feelings that we carry throughout our life. We've talked about judgment, you know, how we've carried judgments for other people, about pain and guilt and all these things that we carry in our lives. And what we're doing right now, in my opinion, is we are actually being able to help humanity by relieving some of these pain and judgments that have been carried on from parents to children throughout generations. And sometimes it's not very easy for you, I think, when I talk to you about a judgment, perhaps a judgment I have or that you have, but I think it's very, very important that we're able to do this because we're helping more than just ourselves. We are helping mothers and daughters around the world and through different generations be able to talk about things
That's
openly.
that is the only reason that I would have accepted to do this show, because I feel that I'm not the only one that's gone through this. I'm not the only one that was a foreigner in a foreign country. I'm not the only one that raised a child in a different language without my family or friends. So maybe by telling my story and seeing what you have become, maybe that will help somebody say, if she can do it, I can do it too.
So one of the things that I think that was difficult for you is that as a child, as a teenager, as a young adult, I did not fit into the normal
No.
realm of things. And I think that was hard for you. Would you like to explain a little bit of that to others? Because I'm sure there is many parents that might have children that don't fit the mold, so to speak.
Well, okay, I guess that I've learned since I've been over here that you are a rainbow child and I am the motherly type, which are two different things altogether. You don't have the, you live like a rainbow. You're all over there. And with me, it's right here. I mean, that's the only thing I know. And I never really knew you. I never knew what made you tick. And I kept on saying all the time, she's just like her dad. She's just like her dad. Because your dad also wasn't able to express his feelings, or actually was not able to give of himself. No, that's not the right word. No, he was not able to understand the people that weren't like him. And you were like him. You were at the time an introvert, and so was he. I'm not. I was an extrovert. I mean, I, I, your brother was more like me. He needed people to make him happy and to make him navigate. So I say, so do I. Your dad and you don't. I, when you were children, to punish you, if I send you to your room, that was no punishment. You'd pick up a book and start reading. If I did that to your brother, he was absolutely torn to pieces because he needed people like I do, but you didn't. You were perfectly satisfied to pick up a book and start reading. That was no problem. That was no punishment for you. So you see, I couldn't understand that. I, I couldn't understand how being being punished and sent to your room was no punishment for you. It was for me. And I guess that's the main difference that we had, is that I like people around me that made me feel secure. You didn't. You didn't need anybody. You were perfectly satisfied to be by yourself, to have your books or whatever you wanted to do. That was fine for you. And I couldn't understand that. And your dad was the same way. I never I never heard your dad once ask me, hey, could we have dinner for my friends? He I never saw any of his friends. The only thing that I saw was when he had his pigeon meetings, the people were there. That was his world. But never close friends. And
So basically what you're saying, and I think this could be true of, a lot of parents maybe, their children are important to them and they do get a lot of satisfaction from their children. But when they have a child that doesn't derive satisfaction from being in a close nature with others, even their parents, it's difficult to deal with that child. You don't understand them. I remember you often saying, when people would say, well, she's not talking, is she mad? And I remember you saying, she's just like that. And I thought to myself, what does that mean? I'm just like that. I'm just me.
No, you're just like that. And that I said that so many times.
And for me, that was something like it was hard for me to understand that. I loved my father, but he couldn't communicate with me either.
No.
So basically, I was pretty much left alone to explore different pathways to try and find out who I was, or how important I was, or how to find out a way to love myself for who I was. And it was very, very difficult. And I think one of the things that I'd like to bring up that I think is really difficult, again, is that we came from what you might call a very upper middle class or a nice middle class family. Post after the war, there was a nice little community and the life was beautiful and everything was really, really lovely. And yet here was this child who was not fitting into the loveliness. My friends seemed to fit into loveliness. Their parents did, but I didn't fit in. And it was a difficult spot for me to be. And I understand that you didn't know what to do with me. I mean, I was not something that you
I
could.
didn't understand you. I didn't know. I did not understand what you needed, what you wanted from me, from us, because you never mentioned it. You never said anything. You never communicated. And we didn't know. I mean, like,
It's okay, Ma, because what we're doing right now is we're showing other people that sometimes you might have a rainbow child, a child that you really don't understand.
don't
And what
understand.
happens is they need to be inspired.
They need
to be
to
told.
be understood. Okay, I guess that maybe when I came here, I promised myself that I would not interfere in your life at all, that I would not dominate you anymore, that I would not say, Diane, it's cold outside, put your sweater on. That if you wanted to go naked outside in the cold, that was your judgment, that was your thinking, that I was not going to live your life for you or tell you how to live your life, that I was going to be able to accept it the way it was. And so far, I'm pretty proud to say that I did pretty good at it.
And how does that feel? How does that feel for you to set me free, to encourage me to be who I want to be?
Lonely, because I feel like I've lost you all over again.
Oh, so does that mean that, what does that mean actually? Because I'm hearing something here. It's like, am I attached to this person? And when I let her go, I feel lonely because we're talking about a need here, okay?
Yeah.
And you understand that what happens when people need other people, it creates a distance.
Yes, I do understand that.
And we talk about this, and we are right now. Yes.
Yeah, I know. I do understand that, and I do know that that's a mountain I haven't climbed yet, that I haven't been able to conquer yet. I mean, sure, I've made progress, but it's like I've told you before, there's a long ways to go. I am not at your stage. I wish to God I was. And so many times I've said, I wish to God I was like her. But I never will be before I die, because 94 and a half years of living this kind of a life, you can't just turn it around and say, oh, no, I am fine. I am just like Diane. No, you said it yourself. It took you years, and it took you lots of learning and books and all that before you became what you are. And I don't think I have that time anymore, but I'm trying. At least I'm trying to be a better person than I was before. That's about all I can say.
And have we not talked about, it's very important for each individual person just to be the best version of themselves that they can be. And that's all you can be.
That's all you can be. And that's what every night, every morning, whenever I think about it, I ask the Great Spirit to help me be the best I can be. The best I can be, not you, I. Because what I can be the best at is not necessarily what you can be. I'd be maybe here and you were there. I mean, I cannot be you. You cannot be me. We are two individuals that have had two entirely different lives. I just want to be the best I can be. Please help me be the best I can be today. That's all I ask for.
And Mom, what I'd like to say today is that you are being the best that you can be, because you've agreed to do this. You've agreed to do this video with me, and none of us are the best every day that we can be. We strive to be, we all do. And it's so important that we're able to mirror each other. It's so important for me to ask you questions like, you know, why did this happen? I was feeling this. What did this happen? And most parents would not be able to be present enough to explain to their children, this is how it was. This is what I knew. That's like being the absolute very best that you could possibly be for me, my children, my grandchildren, and your lineage too, who are all clapping for you, because this is
I
what
try
we're here
to
to
be
do.
honest, Diane. I try to, before I leave this earth, I try to at least, if you remember me, that you could say, well, at least she tried to be honest. She didn't lie. She didn't fake it. She was what she was, and she admitted it. That's all I can do.
And I totally 100% appreciate that. I appreciate the time that you've taken with me today. I'm hoping that it might help other mothers and daughters talk about how important being honest with each other is. Honesty sets you free.
Yes.
The things we've talked about may be difficult sometimes. We may get angry with each other sometimes, but be honest. I was never allowed to be honest before because I was raised in a family where you don't speak. You don't speak unless you're spoken to. And I went off into my world that way, but my mother has very, very kindly agreed to talk with me now on even the worst of subjects. And that opens, and I have to say, it is still not open, Mother, because I still know that there are times when you're going to come back at me with something that's going to put me in a corner. So 100% open, no, we are not. You know, it's very difficult to trust somebody 100% that they're not going to throw whips and daggers at you. And that's been my life with you, in all honesty. However, it is getting a lot better, and I love you so much for taking the time to talk with me about these things. And I know so many parents could not do this right now. I don't know if my father could. I think he would try. I don't know that he could, but I'm grateful that you can. And what we're doing here is just to help mothers and daughters speak.
Diane, it's a selfish thing too, because I do it also for myself. I want to be a better person. I want to be able to understand you. I want you to be able to have a good memory of me instead of saying, oh, my mother. Oh, yeah, uh-huh. You know, I would like when I'm gone that you could say, God, I miss my mother. That would be the best. That would be the best, the best compliment you could ever give me.
Mom, I have to say in closing our time right here that I am who I am because of this tough woman here who came across the ocean at age 19 to marry somebody out of absolute love, who did not know where she was going. She could not speak the language. She was leaving a safe, secure home with her father and mother and brother and sister to go to meet somebody just out of pure love. How often do we do that? You know, my mother also had the guts to learn this language. And not only that, but to go back to school and become an accountant so that she could work in this country. You know, there are so many things that you did that were so gutsy and wonderful that I have taken from you. And I hope that my children and grandchildren will take from you also. You know, you went back after your husband died. I don't even know what year that was, but you went back to the gym and started working out. You've never done that in your life either.
At the age of 75, I started going to the gym.
So, you know what I mean? I honor you for giving me so much courage and showing me what you could do, even coming up here, knowing that we did not have a relationship, but you came anyway. Who knows what you were coming into? And still, it's not easy for us, but we're going through this because we're being honest. And this is how we grow. And this is how the generations grow. So I thank you for being here with me. I hope that humanity is going to be a little bit better from our talk, and that we're going to be able to see, because you're not going to be here forever, let's face it, either am I. But the young children are going to be able to hear something about what it was like to be 100 years ago, what we grew up with, how we grew up with the families then, and how we've opened up now into exploring different realms. And throughout, the one thing that I knew, regardless of where I went, and trust me, I've been in places you don't even know, Ma, and you don't even want to know. But one thing I knew is that my mom and dad always loved me. So the bottom line for any family is that for children to know they are loved, they are supported, they are cherished, and they have a place to come home to.
Yes.
So I thank you for that, Ma. I thank you for being here with me now.
Thank you, Diane. Thank you for trying to understand me and accept me for who I am. And thank you for being such a wonderful daughter. I really, really, I'm so proud of you. I really, really am. And you are a lot like your dad.
Oh, and I love that part. You know, I
You
love
know,
pigeons.
I
I love
was-
animals.
I'll make a confession. I loved your dad from the moment I fell in love with him until he took his last breath. I have always loved him, and I know he always loved me, regardless of what the circumstances were.
Yep, and that's kind of cool, guys. So,
Yeah.
Again, I thank my mom for being here with me. And you know what? I also invite, if anybody has any questions and they would like at some point to talk to my mom, maybe you can't talk to your own mom, but I guarantee you she'll be here and she'll give you the best she can. So I'm going to put this out there to everyone, you know, and if you, again, want to talk to my mom about any questions that you have not been able to talk to your mom about, just let me know, because that's
I'll
something.
be honored to help anybody I can.
Thanks, Ma. Okay, so we're gonna close up our time now, and we'll see what happens on the next round, okay? So again, this is Diane at the Diamond Center with my mom, Simone J. DuPont Waite Hale. All of that is in that package right there that you see in front of you. So thanks again, Ma. All right?
Welcome, Diane. I'm honored to be asked those questions.
And
I'm so glad that we had this talk.
And I am too, and I'm gonna let you go back to whatever you do, and I'm gonna try and turn the recording off here somewhere, right?